want to give you a quick demonstration on how to use this backup system that is written in Bash. It works very similar to the cPanel backup system, although it's more simple maybe. Although cPanel has an interface, this is just command line. You can have as powerful backup system on any server really that runs Linux. Okay, well, the backup process is, to set it up is quite simple. You basically first clone this repository and then you change to the folder and you make the run script executable with this command here. Now I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Then you'll run this file and it will take you through a tutorial in which you should have a few things in advance, little bit of information in advance. I'll also show you some of that. And then eventually you link this script, this run script, to a cron job, which then would run regularly in actually updating your files and databases. On Debian, Ubuntu, Linux distributions, you need Bash, which probably is already installed, and you need Git, which is very easy to install. It's simply this command here. And if you're going to use Dropbox, you need to clone this Dropbox repository, and you also need to make its uploader executable and run the uploader script, which then would ask you for a key which you get from Dropbox. Okay, so that's a simple quick overview of the help menu, which you can then come back to for review. Now let's demonstrate this. So before we really jump into it, you need to know the database name, username and password, and if it's more than one, you need to know everyone's name, username and password. You could do many, not just one at a time. The same with the folders, the files. You should know all the paths to the folders and files that you want to back up. And you need to decide on what type of backup option type you are looking at. There is a remote backup, like just from one server to another server. That is the SSH option. And then there is the Dropbox option. Now the SSH option will require that you have a SSH authentication already in place with a public key on the remote server, with the private and public key of course already set up on this system, the one where the backup will run. So that needs to all be set up. You need to also have some SSH configuration set up to know that it needs to use what key for for that server. If you do not know how to set it up, you need to Google how to set up SSH login public, and then how to ensure that a specific host uses a specific key. That all is beyond the scope of this tutorial. To set up the SSH, you need to know a little more about using SSH regularly, and that means you need to, at the end of the day, if you can type SSH username of the server where you're going, and then the IP, like that, and click enter, and without them asking anything else, you're on that server from the server which this backup must run, then everything is correct. That's how it should work, because that means you got all your keys in the correct place and it doesn't ask you for password authentication. Obviously, because the script is running without your supervision, that's why this kind of authentication is required, and it needs to be done. Now the script itself has it asks a lot of questions. If you choose the SSH option, it's going to ask you for the path to the private and public, actually to the key files. I think this will be best demonstrated, so I'll just choose that as an option, and then we'll bomb out, and then we'll do the Dropbox option. So just that you know, there's a little bit more house cleaning or housework to be done in using SSH, but the Dropbox also has its little tweaks, so I'll show both of those. But you need this information ahead of time. It's always good to have it somewhere in text file close by. You could just copy paste it in, and that you are sure that they are right. That you have the name of the database, the username which has access to that database, and that user's password. Don't use root as the username. It is just not secure, and yeah, best stay with a more limited user that only has access to this database. The file path, again, must be from the root folder, so I'll show you that as well. Okay, so I'm gonna actually go into a server that I have on Amazon, and I'm gonna set up this backup system there, and so you could follow along with some of that. This is a Bitnami server, and I have an application running here. I also have a database. So I haven't set up the backup on this server yet. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clone the backup files to my server. Git already is installed on the server, so it comes by default, so I'm not going to need to do that. I simply can run the clone script, so we'll do that first. Okay, so it's git clone, and then the path to the repository, HTTPS path, because you don't have permission to use the SSH one, and then the file or the folder name into which I want to clone this repository, and then click enter. Okay, that was quick. It's all there with just LSLA, and then we see there is the backup system in place. Now I'm gonna just run ahead and also grab the Dropbox script, because I know I want to also basically have Dropbox there. Now if you want to paste it in, you could do paste, or it's Control-Shift-V, which is how you could paste that in. And so it's again just the path to the Git repository, and I want it in Dropbox Uploader, and enter, and it clones it in there. So now we have both of our scripts on the server. Next up, we need to just quickly set up Dropbox first. So I'm going to change into the Dropbox folder, and I'm going to sudo chmod +x, and then the Dropbox uploader script, drop that one, enter. Oops, I spelled wrong there. Okay, so now that script's executable. I already have a Dropbox key. Now the way to get the Dropbox key is quite simple. You log into the Dropbox account where you want to back up these files. You obviously need to be ensured that these files won't be bigger or more than the space you have with Dropbox. Then you go to create app. So if you don't know how to do all that, Google create app in Dropbox. Then on the app page, I can show you how that looks like. So this is where you should be, in dropbox.com developers, and you should be logged into your account. Then you go to my apps, and you click create app, and that will then take you to a page where you can get a key. So I have an app here called Amazon Backup, and I basically have nothing else really set up here. This just created a name for it and said that it's an app folder. Of course, that's what all the questions you're asked during the creation of an app. So you just choose a name, and then you choose what it is, full access, or and then you have basically an app key and an app secret. And this is the value that you would need, the app secret. So you would come here and you'd click on show. My mistake, it's not actually the app secret that you need actually an access token. So this is the one you need. So you'd click on generate access token, and then that is the token that you need to keep for when you run the app. You're gonna have to add this token. So it's a very long key like that, which you just copy and paste elsewhere. And of course, don't share this with anyone. They will have full access to the area. If this app was set up to be an app folder, they will have full access to the app folder with this key. So it's seriously important that you don't let this lie around. Okay, and that's what you need from Dropbox. It's simple. You log into your account. At the bottom of your personal account, there is these three dots. You click on that, it will take you to developers. If you can't find it, just type in developers. That's how you'd get here. And then click on my apps, then create an app, give it a name, and then get the token. You don't need to do anything else to get this to work. Okay, so that is done. So back to our script, I basically can run that Dropbox script like that. Enter. Now it's asking me for the access token. It'll ask you to validate the access token. You say then if it's correct, you say just a Y for yes, and you're basically done with setting up Dropbox. It now has all the ability to move data from this server to Dropbox. Okay, so now let's go to the backup system. So change directly to the backup system, LSLA. You see what's here. Okay, so we have that run script is already executable. We see that little X there means it's already executable. So we could simply go .run, enter. So the first thing it's going to ask us is, are we going to use a remote server or are we going to use Dropbox? So if I say remote server, then it's going to ask us for the username of that server. So we can say user at your server, or it could be an IP, doesn't matter. Like that, enter. Then it's going to ask you if you're going to want to update databases, and this is where the database information comes in. And so over here I'm going to say no, because I want to not do remote server. So that is as much as it's going to ask you for that. Let's click no here, not websites either, and we're back here. Now the file that was created, which we now need to remove, will be one called config without the .txt. So we just do lsla. So let's see here. Okay, no, it's a config.sh that was created. So we go rm for remove, config.sh, and that's it. So we basically going to start the tutorial with doing a Dropbox backup. Let's see. So here we say 2 for Dropbox. And do you have a path for the Dropbox uploader file? Now that is the place where we got this this directory basically. Because it wants to have access to this file here. So that's where you want to get the path to that file. If you say no here, it'll bomb out and tell you you must get the path to the Dropbox file where this thing has been cloned. Since I actually do know the path, we can say Dropbox 2, and you paste that path in there. So basically you want to give him this whole path from the root directory, Bitnami. We're on a Bitnami server. That's the folder, and this is the file. So you want to give him the whole path to the file wherever you placed it. You don't need to place it the same place I did. So this is where you can change where you placed it. Press enter. Okay, problem. I was supposed to say yes there, and I messed up, so let's do it again. And just say yes. Then it asks for the path. And you can see it gives you here sort of an example of how the path usually would look. So there it is. Then would you like to back up database? We say yes, we want to back up database. Now the remote backup path is in Dropbox, in that Dropbox app folder. You might want to place the databases in a subfolder to that app folder. And usually the default db_path is correct. And if that's what you want to use, you could just type db and then path like that and enter. Then it's going to ask you, would you like to back up files, websites? We say yes. Now it's also going to ask us for the website path in relation to the app folder, and we just add that again like that and enter. Now there's two ways you can back up your website. The one is a zip package, which is number 2, the default. The other one is per file. The per file option takes longer and uses Git to track the file changes, which means that's if you were using a remote server. If you're using Dropbox, it moves the website file for file to Dropbox. And it could be resource intensive for a small server, and then the zip package option is by far the better choice. So usually we would use the zip for Dropbox, which is the default, so I'm gonna go with that option. Then we're gonna have to decide how regularly do we want a new file to be added to Dropbox. Dropbox has the option to keep track of history of the files, so you could overwrite the same file and it'll keep track for a few months or weeks. I'm not sure, I need to check that, but it has a history, and you can, I think you need to pay extra for that. So if you don't have that option, you're gonna have to most probably choose the fourth or the third one, year, month, day, so that every day there will be a new file. So if you want only per month a new file, then you use number 2. If you want only per year, then you use number 1. And if you want a new file every time, you could use either you use number 4 basically. If you never want a new file, if you want this website to always just be one file, then you use 0, which is no date at all. That's sort of just a tweak to scale the backup size in a way that's a little bit more convenient. So in this case I'm going to use 1. Okay, then now running a database backup, how do you access the database from this local system? Over what IP? Usually if you have MySQL running on this local system, you would actually just use 127.0.0.1. If you don't know what this value should be, best go with the default and see if that works. If not, then you can always go back to the files. I'll show you the files later, where this data is stored, and you can actually then yeah, there you could handle it. So we click enter here for that file, then set the file name for the database package. Now the database package, it's good to give it the same name as the database itself. So that's just convention. You give the database the same file name, the same name as the database. So in this case it would be light.com, and now we're going to add the database name and password. I'm going to go over that quickly. Well, and the username and password. And then it's going to ask you, do you want to do another one? And you can add as many databases as you like. So at this point I have only one more to do, so I'm going to say yes. That's the same. The file name now is light nl, light nl. And now we're done. I can say no. So now it's going to ask us set the local folder path. So you need to now decide how much of the database, or sorry, of the file do you want to back up. So in this case we want to back up all of the data, and that would mean that's the whole path to the files we want to back up. The remote user path would be light. That's the .com one. And I want to do another one, yes. This time we just add NL here. And the remote would be light NL. That's a choice you can make. It's basically in which folder you're going to be placing this zip file. And no, we're done. Now it's not able to run a few of those because of various reasons. I'm going to just exit out here. Come on, there we go. So that wouldn't give you those errors. It's simply I mistyped my password possibly on those databases. But the moment you do that last folder and it say no, it actually runs its first backup, and that's really what this shows you. So let me just quickly fix some of those errors and then we run the backup again. Okay, I think I got that fixed. We can now just run the script, and it'll always give you that warning, but because you're running on a server that is supposed to be secure, no one else logging in on it and checking your logs, then this isn't a problem. Okay, so now it's already made the backup and it moved it to Dropbox. It's now busy with the website, and now it's finished with the first one. The problem I had previously is that I forgot that I'm actually using just one database for both of these websites. Okay, so it's now doing the second one. And then we're done. So that's basically how every backup will look and how it will run. So next up we need to set up a cron job which will regularly run this run script and make those backups. Okay, to set up the cron job, there's this nice little tool, cron tab guru. Don't like the name, but it helps with setting up, how regular do you want it. So you could say I want it once a day, So here you can, if you click there next, you'll see when will it next. So it's once a day at 4 minutes past 5. Sorry, 5 minutes past 4. Once a day. This is a nice option. So we could copy that, and we can now go to our server again. And here we basically gonna run cron tab E to open the cron tab. Now there's already possibly some cron jobs running, so just don't remove any. Then you can basically want to run this script, so like that. There we go. This is the path to where the script is, and you want to not keep the result, you're just going to throw it away, and this should run. So Control X and yes, and enter, and now you have that cron job set up. And now from here on forward, every time you once a day, that backup will run and you're done. Well, thanks for watching. This is how you set up the backup script for Dropbox. Once it's set up like this, like I said, it will run according to the cron tab and everything should be fine. You could do one final test to check if it works by just running that path that you pasted there like that and click enter, and if it does the same as what we did earlier, then you know everything's fine and it's working as expected. So that is how you set up a quick workaround for backups to Dropbox using these nice little snippet scripts that are basically bash scripts. Okay, thanks for watching. You could obviously now go to Dropbox and actually open that app folder and see the backups that they are actually there. So I can quickly do that. So you basically go to your apps folder. There should be a new folder called the same as the app that you created. It seems I made a mistake because it's dumping these backups without placing them in the correct folder. So I'm going to quickly go back and fix that, and then you will also see how to fix things if you made a mistake. So first thing is I'm going to select those here, and I'm going to delete them because I don't want them here. I want them inside this folder here. So we will move back into change directory to the backup system, LSLA, and we should see a config and a database. Now we want to go into the config folder function. We want to fix something there, so we'll do so this is nano and then config. Now you will see that this is basically where those values were added, and you'll see the database one that went wrong here is simply this / I forgot to add that / there. Further, everything seems right. You could come and change these values manually and it'll work. If you want to do this through the little tutorial, just delete this file, and when you do the run script, it'll ask you this information again, because it checks if this file doesn't exist, it does the tutorial again. Okay, so we made our changes. We press Control X and then press Y and enter, and so it's got our changes set. Now we should be able to run the script, and it should place it into the correct folder. Enter. Now it says it's moved it, and we see nothing happened here. We go into the file and we scroll down a little. We see, yeah, there it is. 10 seconds ago the file was moved. So then we can do the same. as soon as it's finished moving both websites, there we go, we can go into the website folder, again scroll down a little, and there we have them. Refresh. Sometimes it takes a moment for it to get the new timestamp. Anyway, there is the two backups in the correct place, as expected. Well, thanks for watching again. This time we're done for real.